Hey, this is Trav here, and this podcast relies on the good people who help support this podcast on Patreon, and I'd like to give a big thank you to Bill, Bree, Brendan, Grant, Lisa, Mog, Dan, and Paula. Thank you so much, and here's the show. Hey, welcome to episode 173 of Tales from the Mindboat, the slow-moving boat ride inside the charcoal grey, misty mountains of my mind. This is Trav Nash speaking, and thank you very much for listening to this episode. It really does mean a lot. Today's show is another unconscious rambling of words, thoughts, and feelings about the state of all things, not just myself for a change. So it's a good show, and all you need to do is sit back, relax, think about what tomorrow may bring as we set sail. What more do I have left to add to this already overflowing trash heap of poisoned, untreated disillusion and psychosis? This wasteland of failed ventures and relics of former empires that were born by self-appointed mad kings whose only interest was the illusion of mortality. Huge industrial machines walk awkwardly like shiny metal birds and reach down and scoop up more discarded and overinflated ambition and crush it into perfect compact cubes to build a wall to keep the dreamers and the idealists out. We don't want what you're selling. We only want the kind of things that increase their social status, and we care little about how the future is running out of road, and the beyond is an empty void of uncertainty, fear and displacement. There will be no more protest songs. No more military parades flexing strength of mass destruction. No more riots that leave bodies bruised and eyes stinging. It's all flags that can envelope and capture our own sense of self. With blinders on, we are fine, and it's everyone else that is wrong, because the poison was always in the well, causing mass hallucinations of modern white utopias that are painted over the rubble of debris of crumbling infrastructure. Tall, proud glass towers grow from the concrete and rise above us that make unsuccessful attempts to connect us through the great heavens above. A need for the soul to grow up and out and pass on to a bigger and better world to conquer, then set on fire. Because war runs deep in our tree roots, watered down with blood, and outward fear of murmurs of conflict inside all of us. Bodies that have already died and still walk among the living. Now skeletons, bones, and rib cages harbouring a dark, swirling black hole that will not pass on until it brings this whole damn system down with it. There is danger on every street. The night casts shadows on already vacant eyes and charcoal hearts. We're in the midst of a free fall into the fiery abyss that licks your cheek as you plunge into the everlasting darkness. Alone is how you came to be, and alone is how they'll take you out. Make your voice too loud and they'll muzzle you like a mad barking dog. Nobody wants to be told what is coming straight for us all. The unthinkable is hard to imagine until it takes shape, grows teeth, and starts to take everything away that you've worked hard for. At that exact moment is when everything will collapse. Fault lines will bend and give up under enormous strain of steel and concrete. Quakes that rattle the sleeping souls from old bones and caution signs give up standing and fall face first down as they realize that nobody ever paid any attention to them anyway. The death squads move and round up anyone who still has optimism that they will survive this next phase of history, only to be thrown into heavily armed and guarded camps for reprogramming and eventual termination. Ideas have always been dangerous. They're tiny sparks in a world that is gassed in smog of flammable fear. Ironclad priests of an appetite for destruction march along walls that divide the insane from the rich, morally bankrupt, and undisputed sociopaths. A new wave of religion, or a subtract of self. A dazzling carousel of blood-stained history that keeps going around with every new generation that climbs on and once more around its dying sun. Hope stains your hands and gets under your fingernails. It pollutes the blood and switches the brain into autopilot. Take one day at a time, they say, but the future is no longer walks. It runs at incredible speed. It's wild and savage like a predator, and when threatened, it will knock you down and feast on your ignorance. The sun will sink behind a distant horizon and pretend it didn't see anything, or maybe it seen too much and is now desensitized to the cycle of violence and the desire to alter anything that tries to stand up for itself. You were born into this world powerless, and they want to keep you that way. They want you at arm's length. They want you mollycoddled, desperately dependent on an absent parental figure who tells you fairy tales that no matter how much darkness someone endures, they'll still live happily ever after. Stories end far too quickly, and crucial details are left out. Whether this is on purpose is up for debate. But time is subtracting the possibility of resolution. Fools band together with ulterior motives and blanket their cause of dreams of revolution. Money is a computer virus that corrupts our brain. Backdoors are open for cyber attacks. Our identity is stolen and sold to empty-skinned mannequins that waste a lifetime trying to be something they're not. A life disconnected from being experienced in the physical world. Now bodies left abandoned and only living through open windows and fingertips blistering as skin peels as keys are pressed of machine gun fire. Softly, slowly, and medicated. Terminal bitterness. A resentment for all living things and abandon of all former self. An overly produced spectacle that distracts the world while missiles are fired and revenue skyrockets. Red particles shiver in the still dark skies and drop slowly until they fade into the black. The rest of the pigments are mixed with water and make large brushstrokes of deepest purple that clean up all the static and white noise that has been deafening our ears for far too long. Ambition stings when it's defeated, and art is the curse. Its value is dismissed because for too many it's a construct that's too abstract. It takes a mind that is awake to gain any kind of positive reaction from it. It could evoke emotion to the emotionally dead, and this is dangerous, and it needs to be snuffed out. Its ability to reflect our current climate of confusion and fear is a truth that few people are ready to experience. It doesn't fit neatly into a tweet, and it can't be shared in a status that accumulates likes and validation for the needy. Time after time, the signs keep telling us to stop and think, but we don't seem to have the time anymore. But what we don't realize is that time has already left us. It's climbed into a rocket ship and went to some barren, lifeless planet where it's no longer needed and nothing matters anymore. We lay flowers by the curb of busy highways in memorial of near misses and absence of memory. Ideas have gone feral, mutated in the unimaginable, and no longer can be domesticated and controlled, because chaos is creeping in like an oil spill that opaques the ocean. In murdering of the natural world, and replacing it with rapid claws of industry and overdevelopment. All of this was doing fine until we came out of the sea and ruined it for everybody. We outsmarted all our predators until we had nothing left to defend our families and lives from. So we turned on each other, We chose sides, we built shelter, and made copies of ourselves to keep the game going. We can't stop until we thrust the knife into every vital organ. Kill the heart of darkness, and maybe then we can abolish the fear. This fear of dying and realizing it was all an illusion. And your life was a flickering light that few people will ever notice. Things got out of hand far too quickly. This lie became too big, and it took a lifetime to maintain its credibility. The best defense was to point the finger away from yourself, draw attention from your obviously flawed existence. Some fought to expose plastic truths, and some called these people the real heroes until they were killed and turned to stone and now sit in parks as reminders of what happens when you become too idealistic. When the sky fell and crashed over all major cities, the cowards ran back to the suburbs and made sure they locked their security gates and placed guard dogs by the door. Prayers to online celebrities so that their unmatchable powers of perfection could save us from the turbulence that threatened to wake up the daydreamers. The world began to spin backwards, and the moon was pulled closer to the earth until it crashed into the ocean and sunk like a stone, causing a vast wave to rise up and protest and drench the abandoned beach houses and all the glamorous people who flocked to the beach as if compelled to ponder where it all began and how it all went wrong. The dry land we crawled upon to unleash our destruction was the same land that was stolen from us, and now has become the boiling seas. Fire took the crown of extermination and burnt those that fled, and repented a life that can only be described as a consistent state or an icon of mediocrity. The patron saint of ordinary, dull grey and emotionally stunted. Hands froze in fear as rigor mortis set in early. Bodies twisted in unnatural poses and faces froze into overly exaggerated expressions of surprise and terror. Optimism wasn't lost, it was stolen from us. It was carried in convoys of trucks and dumped into a desert where few people have ever visited. The air became vile and gained the support of maggots and flies. Things turned ugly quite quickly. Fluorescent angels flickered and was soon snuffed out. Garbage is all we have to show for our species. A lifelong struggle to maintain conformity, to throw away the former and to just leave it behind with no consideration. To work till we collapse, to be crippled and shackled in debt, to have all your options limited and to lose all sense of identity. Fall into a group of people who are just as afraid as you are, and to acquire the skill to pretend that everything is fine, to become conditioned to the nothing, to dull the pain of living by pledging your allegiance to apathy, to drink the Kool-Aid, to stumble off-road only to be caught in butterfly nets and be labelled by dangerous radicals, to tell yourself that no one knows that you're even here, and to believe it and to give up. To drop your weapons of words and intellect, and let the world die and swallow us all down. We've burnt all the books, and we've banned all the media, and censored all the news. We promote fear and war, and discourage empathy, and the desire to fix the problems while we still can. We subscribe to the notion that there is always tomorrow, and we live a life dictated by a 3-word meme, and pretend life is easier for you than anybody else. The complexities are distilled into a sweet sugary syrup. Dreams are now how we waste the day, and drink until the stars die and the darkness becomes the new normal. The cities are now on fire, but you would never realize because you don't leave the comfort of your own home. You live for you and your family, and you learn to be oblivious to the overpopulated world that is choking the life that it already can't sustain. Let selfish wants overwhelm your basic needs. It's never me, because it's always you. The reflection should only reflect the physical standards of what is considered attractive, and not look any deeper in fear of what might be beneath the skin and revealed. Let's close down the schools and bring down all government offices. hang flags advertising Coke and Apple phones that sponsor inequality and the unfair distribution of wealth and power. Only in a world out of options can a burger restaurant clown mascot be more recognizable than some of the greatest minds that have ever walked the earth. It was time to grow up. We were warned this would happen. We could smell it in the air, and none of us did anything. There was still more money to be made. Still time to shop online, to bid for nostalgia, to freeze you in a moment that will protect you from the uncertainty that is sure to come. The will was lost behind the couch. The fight was already rigged. It was a bloodbath, but it was all for show. It gave the masses what they wanted. A cushion to make the bad news even softer. So you could just go to bed and dream about a better world that was already constructed with your limited imagination. Live life like a movie, they once said, and become your own star. And keep fooling yourself that it will all be okay. You will see. But it won't. It never will. And somehow you've always known this, but you did nothing about it. So that's it for another week. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. I hope it was something a little bit different, even though it's probably a little bit rambly mishmash of words. But there's always some truth in there. You can pick and choose what you want to take from it, and what you don't want to hear, I guess. That is the freedom that some of us still have. So if you like this podcast, why not like and subscribe on the very device you're using. Leave in a review. It would really help me out if you got a couple of minutes to log in and leave a review. That would be fantastic. Make this podcast a little bit more visible than it already is. Following this podcast on Facebook and Twitter also helps out and lets me know that I'm doing something that you are totally down with and it's where it's at for you. You can follow me on Instagram at Trav Nash Draws Things, and you can also follow my Twitter at Nashtopia, and there's probably some Facebook page as well. The music for this podcast is composed by Tim Wade. You can find his music right now on SoundCloud just by searching for Tim Wade Sounds, and you can also find his albums on Bandcamp, where you pay what you feel for some awesome music. This episode was written, read, edited, and produced by me, Trav Nash, like a one-man band. You're welcome. So that's it for another week. Thank you again for listening to this episode. It really does mean a lot to me. Thanks to my Patreon supporters. You really helped this month out. And I guess that's it. I hope you have a good week. You're doing well. Until next Monday, stay safe. Peace.